Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this particular section of the presentations. My name is Lloyd Walker, and I'm the Dean and Research Director for the College of Agricultural Life and the Natural Sciences here at Alabama A&M University. Welcome, and thanks for the opportunity to work with you all today to make this presentation a success. I'm sure it will be. We have two great people with us here today on this panel. I have engaged them prior to now. There are two engaging people. So we expect to have a good time here, a very informative and good time. First, we have Dr. Kamara Neal. She's the administrator for USDA Rural Business Cooperative Service. That's with the USDA. I'm going to give her an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about herself. And then I will introduce Mr. Lee Harrison and give him an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about himself. And then we'll go ahead and have Dr. Neal make her presentation because she's got a PowerPoint presentation. So Dr. Neal, if you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then I will introduce Mr. Lee and Mr. Harrison, and then we can go ahead and have your presentation.
So thank you so much for the invitation. Really pleased to be here today to talk with you all. I'm Karama Neal. I'm the administrator of the Rural Business Cooperative Service at USDA's mission area focused on rural development. We serve, there are two other agencies, the Rural Utility Service, which focuses and provides services for water, sewer, electric, broadband, those kinds of utilities. The Rural Housing Service provides single-family housing, multifamily housing, community facilities. And the Rural Business Cooperative Service, where I serve, is focused on business development, cooperative development, to help all of us together to help rural communities thrive. So I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm really excited about having this conversation, sharing some of the opportunities we have at USDA, and looking forward to the discussion afterwards.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it too. And then we have Mr. Lee Harrison. He's the founder and COO for Garden and Air, the local farm incorporated, and he's situated in Oaks Bluff, Alabama. But as you see, he's a man who makes his way around. So Mr. Harrison, if you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself. I know you got a lot to tell us today because I hear you have a very interesting story to tell. But just give us in the way of introduction, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then I'll ask Dr. Neal to go ahead and start doing her presentation.
Okay, well, do you someone tell a little bit about myself and then we'll let her go first? Would that be good?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Would you like me to just tell you a little bit about myself and then let her go first? That would be
Yes,
okay.
you tell us a little bit about yourself and then I will have her do her presentation.
Okay, good. All right, well, my name's Lee Harrison. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Gardens on Air. We are a very unique farm in the fact that we started in 2010. We were the first USDA certified organic aeroponic farm in America. We've been working with Dr. Teresa O'Rourke since 2010, Dr. Barrett Vaughn from Tuskegee University. I first want to say to her, as she is my mentor and I love her to death, thank her for letting me come on and speak with y'all about our mission and our goal in helping people. I feel that God puts us in places where we are needed to be at the right time. And so here we all are together today, and we're all speaking about what we're trying to do. And our emphasis is providing farming and, underutilized communities a way and a path forward to business ownership, to locally grown food, to restoration, rehabilitation. We've got a total aspect, a 360-degree business aspect that helps underdeveloped and underserved communities, be that in the Black Belt of Alabama, and specifically just poor people everywhere. I feel like our society has left so many people behind, especially when it comes to food and rebuilding places. You and I spoke earlier about cities that have all these buildings, especially back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. These corporations came into these low-income areas in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, predominantly Black areas, and they built these manufacturing businesses, and then they left them in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. And they've got these businesses, and these communities are sitting here with no way to move forward, and they've got no path forward because they've been left behind. So our business model is to go into these communities, find these buildings, refurbish these buildings, provide farms and teaching to these people, and then give them an opportunity to own a business and feed their communities. So that's the basic story of what I have. And I'll go
Okay.
into more of it after Dr. Neal is through with her presentation.
Thank you. And I might remind our audience that, which I should have mentioned earlier on, but our topic is really has to do with challenges minority farmers face in rural Alabama, such as in the Black Belt region, and some of the strategies to preserve and what we call a scarce resource, because that's what it is, food and nutrition. So at this point in time, I'm going to ask Dr. Neal to go ahead and start making her presentation.
Sorry.
Okay.
There we go. And okay, so I'm off mute. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the introduction. Really appreciate this conversation. I'm pleased that we got a chance to hear just a little bit from all of us before getting started, because I think it helps put some of the work that I'm going to be talking about in context. And so again, really pleased to be here and to share with you all. I'm going to see if I can get this on the share version. If you give me just one moment. All right, so we just heard our topic today. I'd like to start by just talking about what rural development, what our mission is, what we are focused on at this time in this current administration. There are 5 cross-cutting priorities, you see them outlined here, that undergird the goals of USDA's strategic plan that was released early this spring. These priorities are addressing climate change, creating more and better market opportunities, tackling food and nutrition insecurity, and advancing racial justice, equity, and opportunity, and making USDA a great place to work for everyone. I think already we've heard some places where that aligns with some of the kinds of things that are going to be really relevant. When you think about climate change, you think about food insecurity, you think about more and better market opportunities for producers that are growing those foods. So for minority farmers, these are the kinds of things that might be really critical and might be really important. So we really want to emphasize those. Our strategic plan, as I said, was released in March of this year. We have committed to 6 goals. You'll see some overlap here: combating climate change, ensuring that America's agricultural system is equitable, resilient, and prosperous, fostering an equitable and competitive marketplace for all agricultural producers, providing all Americans with safe and nutritious food, expanding opportunities for economic development, and improving quality of life in rural and tribal communities. And of course, attracting and inspiring and retaining an engaged and motivated workforce at USDA. So I think any farmer who looks at this, any producer who looks at this is going to see some elements of their work, of their priorities, of their goals represented in these goals. And of course, at the Department of Agriculture, that's something we really want to make sure is the case. Equity has come up twice already, just in the first few slides here, and that's not by accident. We are very pleased about USDA's new Equity Commission. This 15-member commission is part of an acknowledgement that, quote, USDA has not done enough to provide all farmers and ranchers an equal chance of success and prosperity. We are committed to changing that, actively working to build a USDA that ensures none of our customers are ignored or left behind. There have been 3 meetings so far of this Equity Commission, and recordings of each are available on the website, usda.gov/equity-commission. All these meetings are open to the public, and those who are interested in attending can visit the website to learn when the next meetings will be held and register to participate. This Equity Commission is supported by the American Rescue Plan Act. And in addition to the 15-member commission, there's an overlapping subcommittee on agriculture and one on rural community economic development. Again, I encourage you to visit the website usda.gov/equity to learn more, watch prior meetings, and attend future ones. The work of the Equity Commission will empower USDA to objectively confront the hard realities of past discrimination and its lingering harm, and help USDA build back better. I think it's just important to note this is an opportunity for accountability, and we at USDA want to be held accountable. So we really do encourage your engagement and participation with that Equity Commission. So what does this mean for rural development, where we sit, and where I think for many rural farmers, and particularly farmers in the Black Belt, the Rural Development Mission area is going to have some relevance. We are focused on 3 key priorities that will help rural America build back better and stronger. We're particularly interested in projects that address climate change and environmental justice, that help advance racial equity, place-based equity, and opportunity, and that create more and better market opportunities. Again, you can see these themes arising again and again. How do we make sure that producers are treated equitably? How do we make sure that they have access to the kinds of opportunities that they need so that they and their customers and such can thrive? These priorities that I've listed here are used for scoring and selection for many of our programs. And so the commitments to these are evident throughout our work. There are many opportunities for applicants to address issues of equity, climate, and economic recovery. So I encourage you to visit our website, rd.usda.gov/priority-points, to learn how these priorities might inform the work that you are doing. So I'd like to turn now to some of the work that we are doing, and really our newest body of work, which is supporting the administration's efforts on food systems transformation, making sure our food system is fairer, more competitive, and more resilient. That includes various aspects of the food supply chain, from production to your plate. And since producers are critical to this work, both in terms of providing the inputs and some of the processing and other kinds of services thereafter, the Rural Business Cooperative Service is really well positioned to support this work. The pandemic in particular exposed and exacerbated vulnerabilities in America's food supply chain, creating extreme disruptions. Many of these disruptions were in the middle of the food supply chain: processing, aggregation, distribution, and the like, where there is less competition and more constraint. You can see that illustrated here by the narrowing of the funnel in this case. Over the years, we have selected for a more efficient food system, but that system is also brittle. A fairer, more competitive, more resilient food system has more and better markets that are healthier for our producers and consumers, more climate friendly, have more options for producers and consumers, are equitable, diversified, and more inclusive, and strengthen rural communities. Given this, USDA is investing more than $4 billion to strengthen critical supply chains. This funding is provided by the American Rescue Plan Act and earlier pandemic assistance programs, such as the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. This work ensures that the Biden administration's broader work in strengthening resilience of critical supply chains is done as directed by Executive Order 14017 on America's supply chains. One of the early initiatives in this effort is the administration's action plan for building a fairer, more competitive, and more resilient meat and poultry supply chain. So now narrowing from food to specifically meat and poultry processing. This action plan was announced on January 3rd of this year, and you can learn more about it. This is the easiest website so far, usda.gov/meat. When you visit that site, you'll find a rationale for this important work and a list of programs and policies being developed, including grants, loans via intermediaries, technical assistance, workforce development, innovation support, and rules and enforcement. This website is updated frequently, and so I encourage you to check back often. There are just a few of the programs I'd like to highlight here. The Meat and Poultry Processing Expansion Program, which provides grants of up to $25 million for meat and poultry processors. The Meat and Poultry Intermediary Lending Program, which provides support to lenders, nonprofit lenders who want to finance meat and poultry processors, and the Food and Supply Chain Guaranteed Loan Program, which guarantees loans of up to $40 million at up to 90% for food systems projects in the middle of the food supply chain. So again, I think these are just some of the efforts. And I think one of the things I would highlight here is we're working both directly with those who are involved in the food system and with the intermediaries who are helping finance it and providing technical assistance to those entities. A couple other programs I wanted to just highlight that I think may be relevant again to folks to farmers in the Alabama Black Belt. The Value Added Producers Grant helps agricultural producers enter value-added activities and generate new products, create and expand marketing opportunities, and increase producer income. Priority applicants can be beginning farmers and ranchers, socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers, small and medium-sized farms, ranchers structured as family farms, farmer and rancher cooperatives, and those proposing a mid-tier value chain. One of the things that I think is important about this program is it's one of our more popular ones. It is not limited to food and food products, but it's broader to just any sort of value-added product. So it might be wool or leather or other kinds of products as well. The other program I wanted to highlight here is the Rural Energy for America program, which assists rural small businesses and agricultural producers by conducting and promoting energy audits and providing renewable energy development assistance. And we're really excited about this program. So I wanted to delve just a little bit in on that. REAP, as this program is called, also provides guaranteed loan financing and grant funding for agricultural producers and small businesses for renewable energy systems, energy efficiency equipment, and improvements. This can save a farmer significant money. I had the opportunity to visit a hog farm in Southern Illinois just last month. We used a REAP grant to install solar financing to keep their barn of 3,000 animals cool in the summertime and warm in the wintertime. And their bill had been about $3,500 a month. Well, after they got these solar panels in, their bill went down to $25.47. And that was just to pay for the meter reader to come out and read the meter. And so when you see that kind of savings, that helps a farm's bottom line. That helps that farmer become more viable, a more viable business, in addition to having really significant climate benefits. So these are things we're really excited about. We're particularly pleased that the Inflation Reduction Act, which was recently passed, included $2.2 billion for this program alone. And it includes funding for technical assistance. And we are working right now very hard to put these dollars to work. And again, ask you to visit our website, rd.usda.gov, to sign up for updates and learn more about this opportunity. I mentioned meat and poultry processing and the financing piece. We also provide technical assistance through our sister agency, the Agricultural Marketing Service. The Meat and Poultry Processing Technical Assistance Program offers technical assistance to ensure that participants in the meat and poultry initiatives have access to the full range of services that they need. The website here is ams.usda.gov/MPPTA for Meat and Poultry Processing Technical Assistance. You go there, you find the big green button, you press that, and that's how you get started. And so again, wanted to make sure wanted to highlight that as an opportunity as well. Just a few more things to share. The Healthy Food Financing Initiative provides grants, loans, and technical assistance services and programming to improve access to healthy food and expand economic opportunity in rural and in underserved areas. This program is financed, administered by Rural Development via the Reinvestment Fund, which is a community development financial institution that is deeply engaged in the food sector. We're very pleased that an additional $135 million, $20 million has already been invested. An additional $135 million will be coming through the American Rescue Plan Act to support this program. And finally, I want to turn to the work of another sister agency, the Farm Service Agency. They operate farmers.gov, obviously a great website, easy to remember. That has information for those raising crops, growing livestock, row crops, specialty crops, and forests. There are numerous opportunities on that website, including information on the new heirs property relending program. You know, heirs property is often an issue in communities. It's an issue in family, in fact, but wanted to make sure that folks knew about that opportunity. And again, if you visit farmers.gov, you can learn more about the efforts there. So I've shared several websites during this time. Hopefully I tried to make them the simplest ones that are easy to find, easy to remember. But our state and area offices, we have over 400 state and area offices Rural Development does throughout the country. They are truly the front door to rural development services. So I encourage you to visit rd.usda.gov to find the office nearest you so you can call, email, visit, and learn more about what we can do in rural communities. So really appreciate your time, your interest in rural development, this opportunity. Look forward to your questions and the discussion that follows.
Thank you so much, Dr. Neal. That was very, very interesting. We would like to sort of hold our questions or answer our questions towards when everybody's still presenting. But there is a question here in the Q&A here that I think you might be interested in answering at this point in time. And it says, how can a new small Black farmer get a grant to open a small meat processing facility when the deadline for the last one closed in May?
Yeah, so I appreciate that. That person is paying good close attention, and that's exactly what we like. So if you visit usda.gov/meat, you will see that there was, in fact, a grant program that closed in May. There's also $225 million in additional processor grants that's talked about on usda.gov/meat. Those are the opportunities to look forward to. And so just encourage you again to visit that website, sign up for updates. There will be more information coming. In fact, I've had 2 meetings on it today. There will be more information coming on that additional $225 million for processor grants, following up to the offering that closed in May. So thank you so much for that question. Please sign up. Really want to see your interest there.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we'll turn over to Mr. Harrison. He talks about is aeroponic or aeroponics adventure. I tend to call those things adventure. But he is not just into that, he's also into hydroponics and aquaponics, and you seem to be in all of the ponics. So let's hear a little bit about your interests, Mr. Harrison, and where you are today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walker. Dr. Neal, that was very interesting and informative. Thank you very much. I was actually reading on your one of your last slides about the 18,000 square foot facility that y'all have helped somebody get started. Our farm is actually a 22,000 square foot grocery store that we bought and refurbished or are in the process of refurbishing. So that goes in line with what we are looking at as far as help from the USDA. And you're very correct in the fact that the USDA has been somewhat reluctant to help farmers and other people. Our business is an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business through the SBA. We've been designated such because we were below the poverty line when we started our business. But companies like myself, it's what I found interesting about your presentation as well is, a lot of them cannot find help getting a path to people like you, or they don't understand how they can approach somebody in your position or in your job position so that they can find those grants or that type of money for starting, just like your question the person asked. So thank you very much for giving that information because it's very helpful to my wife and I as well. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Gardens on Air. We started in 2010. We started to help people with cancer, with diseases, because we found that a lot of foods in grocery stores have chemicals, pesticides, things of that nature. So we wanted to start growing, and we looked at aeroponics as a way to do it because we had a very limited space where we could grow food. Looking at traditional farming, in order to do an organic farm, you have to wait 7 years or how many years it is to get an organic certification. So we decided to do a closed loop system with an aeroponics called Air Grown Systems. They're no longer in business, I don't think, but that's who we started with, and that's what we started with in 2010. We did vertical growing. They were 6-foot towers, closed loop system, so the water was all sent through an ultraviolet system to clean the water systems and things like that. And we were able to start our business at a small level that way. My wife and I have worked with our kids since we started to do this, and our goal is to provide the community. Actually, I apologize. Our mission is to show children the benefit of farming utilizing non-traditional farming methods such as hydroponics, nutrient film technique, aquaponics, and aeroponics. In closed loop systems which conserve water and have a higher yield of crops year round. Teaching children, seniors, prisoners, and basically anybody that's interested about this is what we want to do because it provides a unique hands-on opportunity for them to learn about botany, math, food deserts, food supply, the supply chain, harvesting, partnership, community. And I think every bit of this is what y'all are talking about. And then the other aspect is the energy consumption, the power supply, things of that nature. So when you're talking about farming today as compared to traditional farming, you are really looking at a technological difference. And I think that if people understood that there were ways they could do this to help their communities, it would really help. One of our dreams is to have an educational farm. Our business model takes the refurbished farms or refurbished buildings. We make them into a closed environment agricultural system where we can grow inside the building and then have students and everybody come in and farm and learn about farming, but provide for the community. Our goal is to reach a 10 to 20 mile radius and be in the school systems and provide that local area. You look at some of the bigger farms and they are a national chain and they really, nothing against them, but they don't care about the small person, our neighbors, our churches, our communities. So what we want is a community-based farm that takes care of the community just like they used to before, where if somebody's hungry, that farm can go, well, here you go, and take care of that family. That's our goal. Um, let's see, our goal is to empower community health. That's our motto. Um, they'll have people have a place where feeding family or themselves is quick, reasonable, healthy, and local. Um, we started with the Gardens on Air in mind of keeping it local, teaching kids, and just like I said, refurbishing buildings and things like that. Now with the initiatives that y'all have, which a lot of them I've heard for the first time today from you, I'm really excited about the aspect of the farming future for rural Alabama. If you look at most of the Black Belt in Alabama, it's really sad that there's there they have no way to move forward because people just left them behind. And so it's in my heart and our in my wife's heart to build these regionally based farms in all of these communities so that they can provide good jobs, high paying jobs with good insurance, and have good farms that feed them healthy local food. So basically that's what we're looking to do. Um, we're actually our goal is to be a community enhancer. We want to be a national leader in customer service, customer experience, and returning customers for good, solid customer base. One of the things that we really would love to do is have a program for returning citizens so that when they come out of prison or jail, they can come and learn and work in an environment that is positive and helps them to grow and uh, provide for themselves. I'm a retired police officer, and what I saw a lot of times was somebody would get out of jail and they'd be doing so well, but yet they couldn't find a good paying job or nobody would give them a chance. They heard jail and they're like, oh, we're not going to help you out. So one of the things that we really feel impassioned about is giving people like that an opportunity to come in and learn it from anywhere in the state to our facility. And then once they've worked with us and they've proved to us, give them a franchise, give them a business. Here you go. Go back to your home. We help you. We empower you. We show you the way. We give you the financing to help you get them started and get them a business where they can build on a successful business, keep them out of prison and jail. And if you take that one person, it's just like I said before, one person can make that difference. Just that one person. If we make a difference for that one person, you don't know what their family is going to do from then on out. We've got that one family out of the poverty area. We've got that one family that's able to help somebody else when nobody else would help them. And they're sitting there thinking, well, now we can help somebody. And it just keeps, if they can keep giving and keep growing that way. So, we have a lot of things that we want to do. We want to be involved at every school. One of the things that we have done is we've taken the closed environment agricultural systems. Our first school is a private school called Coosa Christian. We actually donated a vertical hydroponic system to them so they can grow their own lettuce inside of the school, teach them about everything about this farming, and then the kids will learn that way. And it also helps our business for the parents as well. But our goal is to be in every school in Alabama. Our goal is to be in every school in the nation because we feel like local farming needs to be on the forefront of what people need to learn about because everyone eats and everyone's got to have food. And you look at all the food deserts and all these kids that come to school that do not eat, that don't have a way to eat. And if we can build these farms locally within that radius, you can provide for churches or food groups or other people that may not ever have a chance to have a fresh salad or fresh greens or anything healthy except for things that are canned or dried goods, which there's nothing wrong with. But I feel like having a healthier environment and a healthy path to your health is a good thing. So that's our goal. Our mission is just to build these small farms to encompass everybody and give a path to students, to the elderly, to the prisoners, to church groups, teach them a way that they can feed themselves. And you talked about the food supply and supply chain. Well, if you look at the supply chain, which, as y'all both know, I drive a truck, I drive an 18-wheeler. And I see firsthand, one, the fuel prices that cost so much for our trucks. Well, that gets sent down to people, so that's why our groceries are so high. So let's say if our farm is up and running and we're providing for our whole community, well, guess what? That the cost of a head of lettuce is going to be near nothing compared to what it comes from Salinas or from out in other areas in California. So the cost is going to be down as well. So I mean, there's a whole aspect of that. We just really want to encompass, the community involvement for schools, churches, prisoners, things like that. So
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Harrison. What you do, there's a lot of nobility in it, and I certainly respect it a lot. There is some questions in the chat, but before we go to the questions, well, in the Q&A area, before we go to that, I'm in the education business, and we educate our students to try to make sure that the next generation of people are very well trained to meet the needs of future generation. And one of the things that I see that that affects rural areas such as the Black Belt in Alabama, it's like a trap. It's like it's in such a way that there is always, it seems as if there is no way out of this. And what we have to do is provide not necessarily a way physically out of it, but a way out of it economically and educationally. And so we have to start two areas that I look at, that I say that we have to start. We have to start with our students. How well do we educate them and give them the tools in order to improve on what they do in those particular areas? And secondly, how do we diversify what they do in those areas? Because I mean, it's like they do a lot of row crops and stuff like that. But you mentioned earlier on, Dr. Neil, about things like poultry and that sort of thing, and further processing and that sort of thing. A lot of that is done, a lot of the poultry business and stuff is done in northern part of Alabama. And so I would like to see some like, say, take for instance, say the poultry industry being extended to those particular areas, not necessarily say for even say the fresh meat area, but also for the further processing, because I do believe in further processing. And the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of economic development that can take place, not just financially, but structurally when you're talking about further processing. And I think that's a way to really kind of help these people get out of that trap that I talk about. So could you speak to that for me, please, Dr. Neal, and then Mr. Harrison?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good point. And I think part of what we are trying to do is we are thinking about these programs. And I say we here, I mean, I'm thinking really all of USDA, because we've been at the Rural Development have been in conversation with our friends and colleagues, as I mentioned, at the Marketing Regulatory Service, at the Food Safety and Inspection Service, at other agencies throughout USDA. And part of what we talk about is the quality of the jobs. And when we're funding or providing grants to various applicants and those kinds of things, what are the types of jobs that are going to be created? So it is something that we are thoughtful about when we're writing eligibility and scoring and those scoring criteria and those kinds of things. I would say too, I think this goes to, I think one of those goals and strategic cross-cutting priorities that I mentioned when I first opened my slide, making USDA a great place to work. And obviously it's not the only place, but I think one of the things that's really important is to see the variety, and you all spoke about this, both of you spoke about this, the variety of types of jobs that there are in agriculture. And you see so much of that reflected in USDA, and we'd love to see more people apply to and get access to what are often, good federal jobs and jobs with benefits, to your point, and those kinds of things that help people, that can allow folks to be a public service within the context of USDA, and allow them to be of service directly, oftentimes, to the communities that they live in. When you speak of, just for example, at Rural Development, where we have more than 400 state and area offices where people are working in their communities. helping people in their communities access rural development programs, the kinds of programs I just described here, also those from our friends at the Rural Utility Service and the Rural Housing Service. So I think there are a number of ways that we would sort of begin to get at that. And there are others who are more closely engaged, perhaps at the Farm Service Agency, for example, who are more closely engaged on production agriculture. We do a tiny bit of work in that area, not a ton, mostly actually in controlled environment agriculture. But I think there's, throughout USDA, there is an interest in helping people understand the variety and the importance of those jobs, making sure people have opportunities for those jobs, whether they are within the department themselves or throughout the larger sector.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Harrison?
No, I do have a question for Dr. Neal. Is there going to be a way, like I asked you earlier, a path forward for an individual farm or an individual business to have an easier approach to the USDA? What we have found is when we try to approach USDA, and we've got some great people in Gadsden where I live out in Alabama, but there's nothing that they can do at that point, at that level to help find grants and things like that. Is there going to be an easier approach for farmers to the USDA to find grants and to find help now that we have these new programs that are in place?
Yeah, so a couple things come to mind with that. So first of all, sorry that you've had some difficulty in that. That's obviously something we want to make sure that we rectify. A few things I would recommend. One, that website farmers.gov, which has a ton of resources, right? So, and I think that's the reason why those kinds of websites, farmers.gov or USDA.gov/me, is because it can gather information and opportunities from a variety of different agencies, a variety of different departments, and put it in one place so that someone who's coming can just navigate that one spot and find whatever opportunities may be relevant for them. So that's one place to think about. Another, I mentioned the Rural Development State Offices. Actually, this week, there's a training for the Rural Development State Directors and the State Executive Directors of the Farm Service Agency that's happening in Washington, D.C. right now, this week. Farm Service Agency also has a lot, and I don't know the number because I think they actually have more than we do of state and county area offices throughout the country. And again, for production agriculture, they are probably the best first stop for those kinds of things. If it's something after production, we can oftentimes be of assistance, like processing or transportation and storage or that kind of stuff. But for production, FSA is probably the best stop. So that's something to be thoughtful about as well, as those state and area offices. And then the last thing I would say is is be in touch, right? Hold us accountable. So in most cases, you're going to find on our website, you're going to find an email address, you're going to find, with various programs and such, you'll find opportunities that are there where you can reach out, and very much encourage you to do so. What I've seen, and certainly what I know I strive to do in my role, is if I can't tell you the answer, I'm going to try to find somebody who can and try to connect you with someone who can. So we do know we're a big organization. The federal government is a bigger organization. There are a lot of opportunities. And we do try to coordinate with them as much as we can. One other thing I'll mention is rural.gov. This is the home site for the Rural Partners Network. Again, a really easy website to remember, rural.gov. And there's a rural toolkit, rural placemaking toolkit that may be of interest. It's broader than thinking about production agriculture, but again, it may be useful in helping navigate. There are, I think, about 20 different federal agencies and offices that are contributing to this website, thinking about rural work from their perspective. And so that rural toolkit, I think, can be helpful for some as well in some of the work that you might be doing.
Thank you.
Okay. And one more thing that I might add here too, when it comes to, we have a state extension system here in the state of Alabama, and they're tied to, all three land-grant universities here, which Auburn, Alabama A&M, Tuskegee. Those are some very good officers out there with the resources when it comes to information to assist you in finding some of those sites. And secondly, we in the university business might have to do a better job in trying to link with people like yourself when we are applying for grants, so that we can apply for bigger, better grants that are much more practical in the communities.
Yeah, hopefully I'm not on mute. Okay, good. Yeah, she was just going to raise that, so I'm so glad you did that, Dean Walker. There are a number of our opportunities that we have, a number of our programs. I'm just speaking just at Rural Business Cooperative Service where I serve, that are open to universities, open to institutions of higher learning. And we know the role that they play, not only in educating students, as we know, as a primary role, but oftentimes in their communities as well, and what they provide in terms of services to their communities, the kinds of opportunities they provide to the larger community. And so I think in that regard, there are a number of programs that we would love to see more institutions, I think there was a question in the chat, that's why I was having trouble getting off mute, about HBCUs, MIs, minority institutions, other institutions of higher learning participating. We'd love to see more of them engaged in the programs that we have, because many of them are open to institutions of higher learning.
Okay, there are some questions in the chat here. Let me see if I can get to them. The first one is, please discuss a sample vertical farming solution for a community. What is an optimal vertical height and square footage? That question must be for you, Mr. Harris, unless you want me to repeat it. I want to discuss a vertical farming solution for a community. And so what is an optimal vertical height and square footage?
Okay, so what we look for in any of the buildings that we're looking at is around 20,000 square foot minimum, with at least a minimum 10.5 foot height, ceiling height. And you have to have enough room for the sprinkler systems, for safety concerns. The systems that we use, we get from George Carter from Scout Strategy. They're a vertical system. And in that building, the one that we have at full capacity, we will be able to produce around 40 to 50,000 head of lettuce per week, year round. So when you're talking about that much capacity, let's just say in Etowah County, there's 16 public schools. So we'd be able to provide for every public school in the county. We'd be able to provide for every restaurant or business in the county, and then it would all be there. And so that reduces on the carbon imprint of the fuel, the shipping supply, things of that nature. But it's also harvested every week, and you're talking about shelf-lasting products that will last a lot longer. So for a community, depending on what size it is, you can start with a building that size, but I wouldn't go any lower, because you would want to expand to where you can fit a region that's big enough to provide for that area. So if it was somebody doing a small community, maybe a 500 person community, 5,000 square foot building that's high, that tall, would still produce around 5,000 head of lettuce a week. So, I mean, there's ways that we can work that in our business model to have more or have less, depending on what it is, because depending on the market. There are some markets that don't like just lettuce. They like our biggest sellers that we had in our area was red mustard greens, and anything other than just lettuce. So you have to really look at the market and what you're growing. We can do tomatoes, we can do cucumbers, we can do all of that inside. So there's a wide variety. When I talked to you about aquaponics earlier, we can grow fish, and then we can also grow shrimp. All of this inside these buildings alongside of the produce that we can grow. I mean, you're talking about a whole community food bank right there within that building, and utilizing these old buildings like we're talking about refurbishing. To me, it just makes sense, to do something like that.
Okay.
Can I chime in on that one as well? I just wanted to highlight, I mentioned that at rural development, we don't do a lot in production agriculture. We don't, but there are some ways. That's why I highlighted that Rural Energy for America program. There are some ways where we can directly support production. I mentioned that solar farm. This is a place too, and that's under that same program. We have opportunities for energy efficiency improvement. So, if you're going to do something like that, and you're going to have this business, and you needed different windows, for example, you wanted to improve the windows there for whatever reason, to make sure that you would be able to grow there. That might be something that was eligible for this. We also, in a fairly new development, have opportunity to do energy efficiency equipment. So it's not just an improvement, like you have something, you're making it more energy efficient. We actually have the opportunity now to help support energy efficiency equipment on its own. So the first buying of that, right? So if you're buying the lights for your contained environment agriculture, those kinds of things, they're energy efficient lights. That might be something that's eligible for this program. So I just want to highlight that it is not something that As I said, we don't have a ton that's in the production space, but we do have some things that are really relevant. I mentioned that guy's light bill going down like it did. That has a real lot of relevance, for your bottom line and for our environment.
Well, we actually were looking at, or we haven't ordered them yet, actually, the lighting and also solar energy. One of the biggest things that I think, especially in Alabama, and y'all know this to be true, is sometimes we are not the last, but we're at the back end of following the rest of the country when it comes to, new things, solar energy, wind energy, things like that. So one of the things that our farm really wants to do is to put solar either on the roof or on, somewhere around there, so that people that live there can look at it and say, well, that's pretty neat. And then when they come in to learn about the farming aspect of it, then we can teach them why the solar energy would be so efficient, so good for their own home. So there's more aspects of the farming community that we have that's not just growing things, but teaching them about new ideas and new ways to do things. And I think that a new generation coming up and learning these things is very important. So I would really love to talk to you about the solar panels and the lighting systems, because that is a direct reflection of the cost input when it comes to our production capabilities.
Okay, thank you. There's another question I have here, and this is coming from Keith Moore. Says, Administration Neil, thank you for being here. How could the USDA in its current structure and its current priorities take a model like Gardens on Air and Arkansas River Rice become the models for communities around the country? Do you see how the Department of Commerce and MBDA in particular could help advance these national models to, of course, include HUD for rural economic development?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, probably the first thing I would say is that, we want to support those initiatives that are coming from the communities. We're not typically developing those kinds of models, but we want to be supportive of them. And so to that end, I think, a couple things come to mind. So one, I mentioned before rural.gov, and again, would point people to that as a place where a number, I think it's about more than 20 different federal agencies have come together to provide information on their rural services and those kinds of things. And so I think that might be a good place to start. The other thing I would say is that, and that's something where that's I should say that is an initiative of rural development, where we recognize that it can be challenging to put all those pieces together, that there are a lot of different pieces to navigate or opportunities to navigate. We want to make that easier where we can. That toolkit and the information there could be useful for folks. The other thing I would say is I think it's, this is, I was going to chime in on the last comment. We were talking about some of the contained environment agriculture work. Our state offices are really a great place to go. So if folks have an idea about how to expand on the kinds of projects that you've just described, you want to make it a franchise, you want to have different models, you want to see if you can replicate it, those kinds of things. I mean, that's the kind of thing where it makes sense to go and sit down in your family office, in your state and area office, talk to the business programs director and say, here's what I'm thinking. What's a fit here? Would this qualify for a REAP grant over here? Would this qualify for a business and industry guaranteed loan over there? Could I get a value added production grant over here? Think it helps. They know our programs in and out, and they can help put those things together. And they often know about some of the opportunities outside of our department, to your point, to make sure that applicants have access to all the kinds of support that they need throughout the federal government.
Great response. There is another question that I have here. It says, excellent discussion on the challenges ahead. How do we link our HBCUs, MIs, MBEs, and CBOs directly to efforts focused on diversifying the food system across the Black Belt?
So maybe I'll start with that one too. I think, as I said earlier, there are numerous programs where universities, higher institutions of higher learning are eligible applicants, and we would love to see more of them engaged and involved in our programs, because we recognize the role that they play, the critical role they play, not just for their students, but for the communities in which they exist. So I would just encourage folks to look at our programs and see, when it says an institution of higher learning, like, think about that. What would that mean if we were to become a lender? I'm making this up, maybe an institution has a meat processing training course and they want to actually have a meat processing facility as well? Could they apply for some of those loans? It's aligned with the kinds of things they're already doing from an educational perspective. And then maybe there's this other angle as well. Could they become a lender? Do they want to make sure that they, maybe they have a small business development center on campus and they want to make sure that those, in addition to having technical assistance, they also have financial assistance. Could they become a lender? We have programs through which institutions of higher learning are eligible that can help them do those kinds of things. So really encourage folks to consider that. The other thing I'll say is that we are very intentional. RBCS, I mentioned in my introduction, this food systems work is a relatively new, in terms of size, relatively new body of work for us. This is not an area where we have a deep, long history in, unlike some of our sister agencies at USDA. We've depended on them and worked closely with them in development of these programs. And part of the way we've been very intentional is in designating the kinds of entities that can apply. And we make it as flexible as possible wherever we can. And so, if it is not explicitly mentioned that, the institution that you're at is not eligible, then you probably are eligible. And that's on purpose, because we want you to think creatively about what you can do, how you want to do it. Kind of this goes to the other person's question a little bit. What are the kinds of things you're trying to want to grow, that you want to replicate, that you want to scale? If it's aligned there, we want to make sure that we hear from you. So I would just encourage that. And again, this is a place where, again, our state and area offices are really well positioned to help identify what those opportunities might be and help you access them.
And I would like to add something to that, because you mentioned about like HBCUs, or we can influence this. And I since we're here talking, I mean, you guys are supposed to be the one providing the answers here. I'm supposed to be doing the moderating. But I'd just like to make mention of a particular program that we started here some years ago. It got a little bit stymied because of COVID, but things are picking up speed again, and we refer to it as FEAST. And that FEAST means Fostering Environmental and Agricultural Students for Tomorrow. And what we did was that we have a research station, and we have a middle school right next to it. And what we did was to open up a passageway so that the students, and put a facility on the research station right next to the school, so the students can get to that particular facility. And they go out there and they are taught things from a practical standpoint, and also from an educational standpoint. But the one thing that we ask of them, there is no, they're paying for anything or anything. The one thing we ask of them, be sure that whatever you do out there in that field is related to what you're doing in the classroom. So we're talking about, if you go out there and you're talking about, planting a seed. Well, what happened when you plant that seed? What happened when it comes to it? So that comes into your biology class, that sort of thing. And so I can see how that is something that we want to expand. We're going to expand it. But that is how I see, we can be influencing kids, like, say, in the Black Belt region, and so they can see. Somebody mentioned about STEM programs being a little abstract to those students and stuff like that. You want it to become real. You want it to become lifelike to them, so that they can see what is happening when you're talking about STEM. And so that's one of the areas that I know we here in our academic setting is trying to see if we can do some influencing. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I do have a comment real quick. Going back to the previous question that somebody asked, we right now are partnering with Jacksonville State University, Alabama A&M, and Tuskegee University. We have had a grant written for us by Jacksonville State to have a offsite alternative educational farm for children in the educational systems K through 12, as well as students in the college and university aspect. We've not heard anything from it yet, but we have applied for it. One of the things that we really want to do is have students that are really interested in coming in and learning about farming. And we're a controlled environment agricultural system. And I don't know if many people know, but right now, in 2020, it was a 12.4% market increase for the controlled environment agricultural system, which broke $60 billion. $60 billion. And it's supposed to go up 9.7%. So the reason I say that is we offer, as Gardens on Air, is a business franchise for, and I mentioned earlier about people come in, they work, they learn, and then if they pass everything that we do for like a year or so, then we want to give them a business and then let them go back to their home and build that business for them. So we actually want to do business franchise models with the Black Belt of Alabama and with other poor areas of Alabama that do not have access to traditional farming methods. And we just feel that that way it'll provide good, strong growth, good, strong community, and great paying jobs. And they're taking care of their community just like we did years ago before society became the way it is now. So I just wanted to mention that to you, that we really want to partner with universities and with children and kids, and to give a business franchise model to people so that they can have their own business. You know, people dream of that every day, and that's what we want to do, is to provide that direction and that pathway towards a business ownership or economically disadvantaged women or minorities or people that don't have that. They can't go to the bank or somebody and they, you know, hey, can you give me a loan? We want to be that person that helps them, because we just feel that that's what God's called us to do. And we're going to do it eventually. And hopefully with the help of people that are watching with y'all, maybe we can get there. So thank you very much.
Okay, one more question. Oh, there are no more open questions? Okay, sorry about that. I thought I saw a question about how you could help students with hands-on, but I just mentioned a while ago how we can help students with hands-on. But one of the things that I can, and I spoke to you about this before, Mr. Harris, before we come in here, and that talking to you was very, very interesting. And I will definitely make sure that we do have a connection, and we can continue this dialogue and get to the point where we can get some tangible things in place. And you know, Dr. Neal, it is very refreshing talking to you. We have been having a lot to do with USDA since the other day. We had our NIFA representative or NIFA director here on campus here. We had a very good time talking about you know, the different things that we can do to assist farmers out in the field and all of that. And so we are very, very proud to know that we're moving in. When I listen to you guys, I feel much more assured that we're moving in the right direction when it comes to the approach that we're taking to you know, trying to make the future better for places like you know, the Black Belt in Alabama. So at this point in time, do you have any thing that you would like to close out with, Dr. Neal? Because we're getting to that place where we're going to have to close out here. First, I want to thank you guys very, very much for, you know, your very enlightened and very lively presentation today. I truly enjoyed it. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Dr. Neal?
Yeah, I want to echo those thanks to our panelists, our moderators, and to the folks who asked the questions. Really appreciate that. We very much want our programs to be responsive to the needs, to the opportunities in rural communities and with rural producers. And so really appreciate the questions that folks asked, and really just encourage you to stay engaged. My information was on the last slide. It's karama.neal@usda.gov, karama.neal@usda.gov. But again, those state offices are the place to go. They are excited, they're engaged, they want to hear from you. And we want you to hold us accountable. We want to be able to provide what you need. And so if it's not our office, and we'll help you find where you need to be. So again, just really appreciate it. Hope this is the beginning of even more. So again, thanks very much.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Harris, Harrison, I just want to tell you that it was very, very nice engaging with you too. I remember when I was asked, my first thing I was asked to do was to be sitting in the chair that you're sitting in terms of making the presentation. And I said, I don't think I was qualified to do that. Let's find somebody else to do it. And you are the right person to have done this. And so thank you very much. If you have any closing statement, I would like to hear that now, and then you know, we can pick it up from there.
Well, like I said, I just wanted to thank Dr. O'Rourke and Alabama A&M for allowing me the privilege and the honor of speaking on this summit. Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. And Dr. Neal, thank you very much for letting me participate in your conversation. It's been an honor. I just wanted to mention a person, George Carter with Scout Strategy. He is a African-American owned business out of New Mexico. And his heart is in giving the African-American community a way to get farm products non-traditionally through the Black farmer supply chain, which people are trying to build now, which I think is wonderful. So I just wanted to give a shout out to him because he's an inspiration, as well as Marcus Thornton and Jamie DeMartin. They own Bink, which is they're one of the largest and 100% Black owned athleisure wear. They have been supporting me, and they're they are just awesome men. But I just wanted to take that time to thank them for supporting me and to thank y'all, and just especially Teresa. She is awesome. I can't thank her enough. I'm gonna give her a big old hug when I see her. So
Great, 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 great. Well, they gave us a little bit more time if we wanted, but I'm sure we are at a good place right now, and maybe this is a good time for us to call it a day. I truly enjoy this session, and I don't know if any one of the organizers, such as Keith, have anything you would like to say for, we have another couple of minutes or so, but other than that, I'll say you guys did a very, very good job. I enjoyed listening to you. I learned a lot from you guys, and I can tell you that I'll be one of the proponents of a lot of the things that you are talking about here. Thank you so much.
thank you.